Sanbonani, Togozani. Hi everyone, this is Coach B, also known as Gogo. I am here today to talk to you a little bit about African spirituality. I just like to introduce it. I'm introducing it from my own perspective, what I know of it, what I experience of it, why it gives me so much joy, share a little bit of my story with you. I know that I have a lot of my African brothers and sisters, African American brothers and sisters, Africans in the diaspora, basically from all over the place, and I welcome you here. Please like, subscribe, and share this video so we can spread this powerful knowledge that will help us to enrich our lives as African people, as people of African origin, and to help us to elevate and to become the best versions of ourselves. So I'm going to launch right in. What is African spirituality? For me, the definition I have created is that African spirituality is a holistic way of interacting with nature, humanity, and the cosmos. That's a big mouthful. What does that actually mean? African spirituality is grounded in the knowledge that we are one with nature. And as we know, everything on this planet is composed of 4 elements. And the 4 elements are fire, water, wind, and earth. And so, as above, so below. In the cosmos, these are the elements that you find that are in the firmament that form the stars and the planets and the moons and all the galaxies that are out there. And that's the same within our own bodies. This is the same in the animal kingdom, and this is the same in the plant kingdom. These 4 elements are combined in different configurations to form this amazing, beautiful world that we call creation. So that's one aspect of African spirituality. The other aspect of it is that we are a monotheistic people, meaning we believe in one supreme being. And we believe that this supreme being has created other beings, spirit beings that are of a higher frequency. And after that come our ancestors who have had a human experience on this planet, just like we are spirit beings having a human experience, and who have transitioned and gone into the other dimension. These ancestors are our conduit, if you like. They are our pathway to the supreme being. So for example, I come from the Shona Karanga culture predominantly. I'm composed of many different African cultures. But in the Shona Karanga tradition, Mwari Musikavanu, who is God the creator, Sikavanu is basically the womb. And so Mwari Musikavanu, that being that owns the womb, is very far removed from normal everyday life. So the way you connect with this supreme being is through your ancestors. Your ancestors are intercessors between you and Mwarim Sikavanu. Now I want to tell you that you will find this north, south, east, and west across the entire continent, and it is configured slightly differently based on people's culture and so on and so forth. But essentially that is the foundation and basis of African spirituality. A supreme being, elevated spirit beings that have never had a human experience, and then our ancestors who are now spirit beings but who have had a human experience, and then us ourselves as human beings currently in this physical body having a human experience, and then we have the animal and the plant kingdom. And this interaction, this dance between nature and humanity, between the oceans and the cosmos, is what is the essence of African spirituality. And in all of it is imbued the energy of Mwari Musikavanu, or the creator. That's essentially it. So why do I love it so much? Okay, I'll tell you why I love it so much. Because I come from a Christian background. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I was a very fervent Catholic. You know, I'm an all or nothing person. So for me, and I had this hunger and this deep desire for spirituality. So I was the 12-year-old who would go on a 6-to-6 fast, locked up in a church by myself with my Bible and my journal, and I would be writing things out that were occurring to me. I was the kid who had this thick prayer book, because everywhere I went, I just wanted to be communing and praying. And as I grew older, I started to feel like something was missing. I went to a Dominican convent school, which was predominantly white. This was started school 1979, just on the cusp, just before independence. And so these schools were literally starting to take African or Black African students. And so we were very few in these classes just prior to independence. And I can remember just feeling so alienated from my classmates and my teachers, who were all white. And then suddenly starting to feel alienated from this God who was also white. Because for me, it was like, this God doesn't look like me. You know, Father God had a long beard, blonde hair, blue eyes. Jesus was pretty much the same, as was Mary. And there was no representation. Representation matters, guys. And so you can imagine that as a 6-7-year-old growing up, during school days, I'm in school and this is what I'm witnessing. And then at vacation, we would go off to the village, to my grandparents' village, where everything was totally different. Everybody looked the same. We lived one with nature. We used to milk cows' milk into our mouths. We would be running up on the hills. And I would feel more myself in that environment. And even when we went to church in the village, it was very different. The churches that we went to in the village, Roman Catholic, yes, there was a lot of music and dance and the drums, and I loved that. That resonated more with me than did the Christianity that I experienced when I was in school, where they would play the organ and do hymns, and sometimes you would want to fall asleep. Fast forward, I left home at 18 and I went to Germany. That's when I had my first existential crisis, because I remember waking up the first Sunday and going to church. I was in a tiny little village, and getting to church, there were people there and saying, "Where is God here?" It felt so cold and so empty. The service was literally 10 minutes, okay? I exaggerate not. And you who know Catholicism know that there's a lot of pomp and ceremony and getting up and kneeling and oh my goodness, there was none of this. We got in, the priest came out, bam, 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 communion was given, we got out. It was at that time that I remember starting to miss home. And by home, not home in the city in Zimbabwe, but home in the village. I was in a cold, tiny village. It was winter. The snow was knee-high. I was freezing the entire time. And I started to remember some of the things that we used to do in the village. I started to remember some of the beautiful ceremonies that we would have, where the ngomas or the drums would come out and they would start drumming. To this day, I still dance our traditional dances because I've never forgotten them. I've never lost them. And so when I go home, everybody thinks it's hilarious. Fast forward as I've gone on, I am a spiritual seeker. So I have journeyed from Buddhism to Hinduism and Tantra. I've had Kundalini awakenings. I've done, holotropic breath work. I have done all manner of things as a way to expand myself as a spiritual being on this planet, searching and seeking for something that would satisfy me. Several years ago, I got struck down by an illness that was termed fibromyalgia. And for 3 years, I was basically in constant chronic pain. I only came out of it in 2019. And it's at that point that I finally said, there's something deep going on with me. It's spiritual. I heal people. I see things. I dream of water and snakes and all sorts of things. I yearn for water like nobody's business. I portend things and I prophesy. And I finally realized that, and I'd known this, but coming from a Christian background and coming from a family and a culture where a lot of African spirituality has been lost, the idea that I could be gifted as a healer, i.e. as a sangoma, as a shikiro or nganga, was just so far flung. And that's why for me, it was easier to do what I did in terms of practice under the guise of, Tonglan, energy healing, Reiki, aligning the chakras. I mean, I'm well versed in all that until, guess what? I found out that a lot of all these practices Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, they all have their basis in African spirituality. So it's almost like I went full circle and came right back home. And I am so happy to be home, let me tell you. I am loving my current journey as I explore my gifts, as I explore also this whole field of Ubungoma, as I learn about the gogos that walk with me, the mkulus that walk with me, who they were, as I learn about the interconnectedness of our African spirituality. So I am steeped right now in learning about the Yoruba spirituality with the Orishas, and learning about how they do their divination versus how we do divination, versus tarot, versus using crystals. It is just one beautiful journey. And all this though, all this is underpinned by my relationship with my ancestors. This relationship is a love relationship. My ancestors aren't some far-flung, removed people the way Jesus was to me. Jesus was a very far away concept. I loved him. I grew to love Jesus because I made myself love Jesus. And I kind of liked the way this Jesus person was in the Bible. You know, he was very kind. I liked the fact that he was a rebel, much like me. You know, you found him with the tax collectors and the prostitutes. And I'm kind of like that person. I'm into social justice a lot. I hate injustice, and I'm always kind of rooting for the underdog. I can't stand bullies. So I like Jesus a lot. I still like Jesus a lot. But he was far removed. My ancestors are right here with me. And that's the beauty of African spirituality. It is not based on belief. You don't have to have this faith that moves mountains in order to experience the exquisite joy of being spiritual and journeying. Your ancestors are right here. There is no heaven and hell, right? So there is no sense of punishment, which is a very, very sad concept. The idea that you do something and you are punished, very Western concept, right? And it instills fear in people. So I know a lot of people who are Christians who are Christian because they are fearful of this vengeful God who's going to smite them. The God I experience and the relationship I have with my angels and my ancestors is so vastly different. It's a love relationship, and they're always around me. Like right now I'm talking to you, they're here, right? I have my Umsamo, or my ancestor altar, right here. And so when I'm working throughout the day, I commune with my ancestors. When I am doing readings, or when I am sharing with somebody or counseling someone or coaching someone, as the case may be, my ancestors are always there nudging and whispering. Sometimes they warn me, no, don't go in that direction. Sometimes I get told what divination tool to pick out for someone. Sometimes it's literally the Bible. By the way, I don't use the Bible as in to read it. I use the Bible as a divination tool. Poop, 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 and whatever falls open, there's one specific passage, that's the message for somebody, right? So all this to say, African spirituality has been really liberating for me. That deep hunger that I'd always had to know more, to understand more, has finally been quenched. I want to know more. I want to continue journeying, but it isn't with that desperation of, who am I and what's going on here? How do I fit into those whole big puzzle? And I have to tell you that coming from a colonial background, colonized country, I'm sure my African-American brothers and sisters will relate to this. There is, in a sense, colonization and slavery really stripped us of our humanity. Our African spirituality was demonized to the extent that in places like Zimbabwe, there was an act that was brought over by the British where people who practiced African spirituality, divination, people who were spirit mediums, people who went into the woods or the forests to find medicinal plants and, did divinations, people like that were imprisoned or killed, right? It was called the Witchcraft Suppression Act. They had it in South Africa too. And I can tell you, though, that spirit is pretty amazing because even under those tough conditions, spirit find a way of speaking. And so you'll find that a lot of what they call the African Christian churches are filled with people who use spirit to heal. Instead of using herbs, they use water. Instead of using divination tools, they do prophecy or they use the Bible. But literally, it is still their ancestors who are guiding this spiritual force that is allowing them to be able to use and to give these gifts for the betterment of communities, of humanity, and so on. But I can tell you that the demonization of our practices, and therefore the demonization of our essence and who we are, has had very damaging effects on all of us. And I can tell you that my mother's generation and that whole generation literally lost out because they became so ultra-Christian. They adopted Christian ways, mainly for survival and for educational purposes. And they adopted these ways to the extent that they couldn't pass anything down to people like me. And so I, over years, have had to kind of figure it out myself. And I am going to be the person who breaks the cycle for my family. I know my ancestors rejoice because in the whole lineage, I am the first in several generations to finally accept this gift and to say, you know what, I'm here. Use me. Let's do this. Use me to heal the lineage, to heal the entire family. And that way I make sure that as I heal myself, as I elevate, my ancestors get healed and elevate, and that my children will not have to ever go through what my ancestors went through and what I'm going through. Not that it's bad what I'm going through, but my children will grow up knowing this because their mom is doing it and I'm sharing it with this. I'm sharing my journey with them as we go along. So all this to say, I look forward to journeying with you guys. Like I said, please like, please subscribe, please share out to your friends. I will be breaking down this, our beautiful spirituality. You will find that I will not share just from my own tradition and understanding as a Southern African, but I will also be sharing from other traditions across the continent and drawing these beautiful parallels so that you guys see that ultimately we are one. We are African first before we are our various ethnicities. And I will be sharing with you this journey. I am super excited, super happy, and see you guys next time. Take care.